to our session this afternoon, all about localization. My name is Sally Reynolds and I'm working with the EDUmake team, and we're delighted to welcome you to the session this afternoon. Just a quick little bit of housekeeping first of all. It's lovely if you can put on your camera and we can see everybody, but don't forget to keep your microphone switched off in the meantime. And please use the chat as well if you'd like to say hello. Hello, Anna V from Bulgaria. You're also invited to change your names, if you could, in the settings to indicate your full name, maybe in the association or the organization that you're joining us from this afternoon. It's always nice to know where people are joining us from. So let me just put up the agenda first of all, Dovi, just so we can remind people of what we are going to do this afternoon during this session. So otherwise, I'm making it up as I go along. Thank you very much. So the title of the session this afternoon is Unlocking the Power of Localization, Creating Engaging Learning Experiences, as you can see. So we're going to start in a few moments with presentations from our partners, from Tim, first of all, from VRT here in Belgium, from Igor, the University of Zagreb in Croatia. Sana will be joining us then from MediaWays here in Flanders, and then we'll have Aniek and Derek joining us from School TV in the Netherlands. And what they all have in common is that they've all been localizing and working with the resources from EDUbox to make them applicable and useful in their own countries. So that's what we're going to be talking about this afternoon. We are recording this session, as you can see, so it will be available afterwards. And we'll also make available any of the presentations to you as well that are shown. So you don't need to worry about that. We'll have, we hope, plenty of opportunities to chat and to discuss the points that are raised. So feel free to raise your hand, indicate if you'd like to say something later on, and also put your questions or any comments into the chat. So without too much further ado, we'd just like to do a quick poll, first of all, because we can see 36 people joining us this afternoon for this session. And first of all, on the main question we'd like to start with is just to ask you, have you ever adapted educational resources to a different context? So we're giving you a single choice. Please indicate if it's a yes or a no, or not yet, but planning to. So I see we have 18 people, 19 responded. We'll give people a little bit longer to respond because it would be good to see what the level of experience is in the group this afternoon. Okay, we're up to 23, I see, respondents. Okay, so we can show the results, I think, at this stage. Toby, we can give people a quick look. So as you can probably see now, most people have actually 61% have actually adapted educational resources themselves, and another 30% are planning to. So that's great. We'll have an idea then this afternoon, and hopefully you'll have a chance to share any questions or experiences that you have with our participants and with our speakers this afternoon. And hello from Namibia. It's very nice to have somebody joining us from Namibia this afternoon. So let's get started because we don't have a huge amount of time, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tim van Leer, who is, along with everything else, is our project leader in the EDUmake project. And so Tim, over to you to tell us more about the work in VRT and what you've been doing with EDUbox and the translation to EDUmake.
Okay, yes, thanks Sally for the introduction. I will immediately share my screen. Okay. That should be popping up.
Yep, see it here.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. The EDUmake project is almost done. We are almost at 2 years. So I think we have a lot to talk about. So what I will do in my presentation, we'll talk about, what is EDUmake, what have we done. But I will also give you a short introduction about EDUbox, which was actually the starting point of the EDUmake project. So that's my part of this presentation. But first of all, actually, I want to give you a question and you can think about it for yourself. Which teacher or lesson has stuck with you the most? I already have done that exercise, and for me, it was a math teacher. And to be honest, I'm not into math really. I'm more of the social sciences and so on. But actually, that math teacher, I think it was in the third or fourth grade, secondary schools, but he had a way of making maths concrete and tell it in a fun and humor, a fun way, and he could put a lot of passion into it, and he always stuck with me. So for me, the main gist or the main thread of an engaging lesson is to bring some passion, to include some storytelling and some humor, and that get me thinking is how can we create the best possible learning experience. So for me, that's hopefully for all of us in this room, the ultimate challenge is make a learning experience is educational but also engaging, and how can we do that? So that's always a question that pops up in our minds. It was actually also the question that we had at VRT, where I'm working for, and we believe that to make an engaging lesson or a learning experience, you definitely need a lot of factors, but definitely also these two: a smart combination of pedagogy, technology, and we are from a public broadcaster. We also believe that storytelling is actually a very important ingredient. I will come to that later on. The second thing is, and that's thing we have learned it through EDUmake, that contextualization is essential. But also not every context is the same. So that's also something you need to take in account. And then, there is EDUbox. Like I said, it was a starting point of the project EDUmake. And with EDUbox, it was our intention at VRT to make the best possible learning experience, to make it engaging but fun, learningful. So I will give you a very short preview what EDUbox is all about. In a nutshell, it is a program not for television or radio. No, it's a program for in the classroom, where we try to inform young people and stimulate them around contemporary topics like critical thinking, science, technology, fake news, and so on. And it is a combination, of technology, didactics, and storytelling. And EDUbox is actually, we try to learn youngsters in 2 lesson hours. We introduce them to those contemporary topics with, like you see, it's a combination of slides, of digital components, like a game you see in the middle, a simulation, but also a lot of videos that we produce specifically for those learning experiences. So it's a combination of different learning styles, different learning activities, but also different media forms. But I can talk about it, but I think the best way to explain it is to show it to you. So we have a small trailer that gives a good impression of EDUbox.
EDUbox zijn eigenlijk kant-en-klare lespakketten, gemaakt voor alle leerlingen van de verschillende graden, van de verschillende stromen, die eigenlijk zijn samengesteld uit maatschappelijke thema's.
Het voordeel aan de EDUboxen is dat er gratis kant-en-klaar materiaal aanwezig is, waarmee de leerlingen onmiddellijk aan de slag kunnen.
Ik vind de EDUbox dus leuk omdat je werkt zoveel samen en dat is veel leuker dan alleen werken.
Maar is dat niet wat te kort? Nee, dat is beter.
Sorry.
De hogeschool biedt vormingen aan om met het materiaal aan de slag te gaan als docent.
EDUbox is gemaakt door VRT-experten. De filmpjes die daarin gebruikt worden zijn heel kwalitatief en zeer interessant naar de leerlingen toe.
De EDUboxen zijn modulair opgebouwd, dus als een snoepdoos waarbij je eigenlijk verschillende elementen er kan uithalen die jou interesseren.
Yeah, sorry for all. It was the edition with the Dutch subtitles. So excuse me for that. But I think you get an impression of what EDUbox is all about. It's a combination of those different techniques. So that was a starting point. Our ambition was now, how can we help other organizations to also use the format of EDUbox? And how can we create an easy-to-use toolkit? And how can we help them to contextualize it? So that's actually why we have started with EDUmake. So the mission of EDUmake was to internationalize the concept of EDUbox and, like I said, develop and create an easy-to-use format for translating and contextualizing the EDUbox packages, but also to make a new EDUbox together with all the partners of EDUmake. It was towards the elections or the European elections some months ago. And we had some different objectives. One of them was to translate and contextualize existing EDUbox packages. The Netherlands, the School TV from the Netherlands and the University of Zagreb from Croatia has done that. Also create an EDUbox do-it-yourself toolkit, and then create the new one towards the election. Today we will mainly talk about the EDUbox Politics that we've created towards the elections, but know that we also have contextualized other EDUboxes, for example, about AI, teamwork, culture, and so on. And these are the partners, also, I think, important to know, the partners that were involved in the project. Okay, so we had a lot of questions, but I want to talk about two main questions that we want to tackle in EDUmake, and it's what are the ingredients of an EDUbox? How can we create an engaging learning experience? And then how can we put these ingredients into an easy-to-use toolkit for contextualization? I will now go deeper into that. My colleagues will talk about the contextualizations and how they put it into practice, but I give you more like the framework. First of all, the ingredients of an EDUbox. Yeah, an EDUbox, it is a learning experience to get you from not knowing to knowing. That's quite, it's simple, but how do you do that? First of all, you need to start with your audiences. So what is the beginning situation? What are their interests? What do they know about a certain topic? It's important that you know who is your target audiences and what do they know and what are their interests. After that, it's also important to know, okay, what are my learning goals? How will I evaluate the things I want to learn them? It's important that you can link that to the learning outcomes of from the curriculum, but also maybe you can learn them something else. So it's from not knowing to knowing, and then the EDUbox is there in the middle, and how can we get there? So that's the starting point. And with EDUbox, it's a format that actually consists of 5 C's. It's connect, concept, concrete, conclusion, and continue. So in the first chapter, we try to connect with our target audiences, to connect with the live world of them, but also introduce the topic in a fun and engaging way. So it's important that you start immediately with something fun or engaging so that you get them into your learning experience. It's very important. Also important in the connect phase is that you introduce a kind of challenge or conflict that they need to overcome. And that's our little pieces of techniques of storytelling. In the second part, in the second chapter, we introduce new concepts, new theory in a fun and engaging way. We also introduce some small games to learn about new concepts. But actually the main and most important thing of EDUbox is chapter 3, the concrete phase, where you have to try to implement what you have learned in the connect and the concept phase. And so we always introduce an exercise. It could be a physical, but mainly most of the time it is a digital exercise where you have to put into practice what they've learned. And of course, at the end, you end with a conclusion, with a summary where there is time to reflect, discuss, but also give the learners a positive, constructive way to look towards the future. And then the fifth one is continue. If you're interested, you have some time and space available, you can look into further references and sources and explore the topic a little bit more. So this is the main construct of an EDUbox. And what we do then is, how can we fill these main acts with the right ingredients? And we think about 3 ingredients: the more pedagogical ingredients, the storytelling ingredients, and more like the media ingredients. And we try to combine this in the best possible way and combine it in a flow. And when we have those ingredients, we also need to think about, two things. There is the class orchestration. You can see an example of this here. Is the EDUbox is mainly a group experience, a group learning experience, but sometimes you also need an individual moment so they can reflect on their own, think on their own, and sometimes you also need a classical moment where you can bring information together to see if everyone is on board, if everyone is on the same length. So that's those are moments that we need to change to. And then, and that's I think also a very important one, another aspect you need to take into account is the tension arc. How can we get them engaged? And we mainly work with the hero's journey, something you probably are familiar with. I think a lot of Hollywood movies are working with that framework. You're working towards the climax and then you have the resolution. But then there is something like social media where it's all about getting, bringing the conclusion or bringing the engagement and the high octane at the very start of a video. And that's actually what we are combining. We combine the techniques of social media with the hero's journey. So we start high and then we create a first climax towards the end of chapter 2, towards victory at the end of chapter 3. And then we come to a conclusion or a resolution. And so this is a very quick preview of how we have tried to combine different techniques like technology, pedagogy, and storytelling into one framework that can help us design the best possible EDUbox. And these are also helpful tips and helpful canvas to other organizations. What we also have done is we have created some pillars, some principles of an EDUbox. For example, I will not go into detail here, but it needs to have an educational value. It needs to have audiovisual material. It's important that you have a multi-perspective view on the topic, that you have a fixed story structure, the one I've shown you 2 minutes ago. So these are some main principles that we think you should use to speak of an EDUbox format. Okay, so that was a little bit theory. How can we design and implement the best possible EDUbox? But how can we translate that into concrete tools that you can use on a daily basis? And that's actually the EDUbox Toolkit. And we have done several things in EDUmake. We have created some design guidelines. We created some digital tools that you could use and reuse in different EDUboxes. We created some games, and also we created the canvas, the framework, to think and create the EDUbox. This is a canvas. This is an empty one, and it can help you when you're brainstorming with your partners or with your colleagues to see, okay, what is the theme of the EDUbox? Who is your target audiences? What are the key takeaways or the learning outcomes? And okay, how can we use the right ingredients in the flow of an EDUbox? So it's a canvas, like a lean UX canvas for the ones who know that you can use building an EDUbox. We have the style guides, if you want to reuse also the branding. And then, of course, we have created 5 EDUbox tools. We have created a co-op game. That's a game where the learners should work together and discuss and choose, decide things together. We have created a puzzle game. It's a small, fun game to during an EDUbox. We have an interactive video. We have the lecture app, and we have the Picture It app where they can upload images on a canvas that can be used by a teacher in the classroom. And like you see on the right, there is also a backend, a CMS, where we can create as many versions of these games around different topics. Here is a small collage of how the tools. On the left, you can see the Picture It app, where you can upload the picture, and there is a canvas where the teacher can filter on photos. They can swipe and try to drag and drop them in different kind of categories. So that's, like I said, the class orchestration. There is an individual moment, and you can use it, the input, to have a classical moment and discuss the content. Then left, there is the lecture app. That's also to work together. It's to stimulate social learning, where information is divided between different devices. So you have to scan and scan the room and register it to it, and then you have different information on different devices. On the right, that is the puzzle game at the right above, and then on the right below you have the co-op game. This is one about teamwork. But now, so in EDUmake, we have come up with a framework. We have created some tools that we could reuse. And now it was, how can we all bring that together in a new EDUbox? And it was an EDUbox around politics. I also have a small trailer. Yeah, how we have come up with EDUbox Politics, and also already some quotes from about contextualization.
The European elections are coming. A lot of first-time voters can make their voice heard. I know politics, not the most sexy subject, but how can we inform youngsters and not make it too difficult, too heavy, not too boring? We have the solution, the EDUbox Politics. Made in Belgium, the most complicated political landscape. EDUbox is an interactive learning experience that handles contemporary topics. We have 25 packages ranging from culture, fake news, to AI, and even more coming up. By videos, discussions, digital tools, and teamwork tasks, we trigger critical thinking and other learning outcomes. And also, you can use the universal topics in your own country. Croatia, for example, translated and adapted our EDUbox in their own language and context.
We have already tested our version of EDUbox and the reactions were great. They were really keen to talk about the topics. They were really interested in the interactive part of EDUbox. They really loved it.
The Dutch, they even made a chatbot based on EDUbox.
The advantage was that we could use a product that was already researched and the whole basic was already there.
So it's an EDUbox, but when you look at it, it's a different product. But still, it's an EDUbox.
For the upcoming elections, we have the EDUbox Politics ready for you. A mix of slides, interactivity, and specific videos about European topics.
You're the youngest MEP that was...
And the crown jewel is a game where youngsters form a government, have their opinion, make difficult decisions on topics, just like a real government. There is an English version of the EDUbox Politics free to use, but you can also easily adapt it to your own context. With a good translator and designer, you have your EDUbox in no time. Contact us and we are happy to get you up and running.
Yes, so that was, I think, a good impression of what you have done in EDUmake. I will very quickly introduce the structure of the EDUbox Politics, but you will also see that in the different contextualizations. So you will see a lot of EDUbox Politics. But what we have tried to do is in part 1 in the Connect is, how can we introduce a boring concept like politics? And we were thinking you will not start with what is politics and use that word immediately. No, we wanted to start with how can you work together. And the first exercise actually in the EDUbox is organizing a school party. And then there we created the link with politics and politicians. So that's what we have trying to do in part 1 in Connect. In the concept phase, we have introduced some concepts that they actually need to know when you're, for example, watching a debate and so on, so they could better better place it. Actually, it's all about how political language, political communication, about political conviction. It's like ideologies, but also how does the political system works. So we give a short introduction on these 3 topics, and then, like in the video, they have to play a game and act like a real government. And then at the end, we give ways how they can participate also in other ways. Here are just some slides. This is about how to organize a party, and we give them a task. Like you see that it's on a group level, it's a group assignment, a link to the life world of youngsters, and it's so important that you start with something fun. Then there is also a lot of interactivity. In this way, it was to connect, or what are the things similar between organizing party and organizing or solving societal problems. But it's always important to get them heard. So there was also a poll where they could give them their opinion and their feelings about politics. So there's also that individual moment, and then we connect it to a class debate. There is a video where youngsters are heard. So there's a lot of variety. And you can see there's a lot of variety. Even we are only, I think, on slide 14. So that's, I think, the power of an EDUbox. And that's actually the thing that we want to turn around as a conflict. How can we, how can we say that politics is more than just politicians, that there are different ways to interact and participate? And then we go into the part 2, where we talk about the political vision, political communication, the political system. In a fun way, we introduce some social learning where they have to talk to each other and tell about different democracies in Europe. And we also give them some information about the institution in Europe, for example. And also important, a very concrete example, I think it's a very good animation about the universal charger and how that law came into being. And then there is the game, form a government. Here are some slides where they have some budget, and they have to make decisions on how they will use that budget for different kind of problems or situations, and so on. And they can also use their smartphone. And then we are at the end. How can you let your voice be heard? Also, we have also interviewed a young person who was very active, a very positive example. And then we end again with a reflection and think about, have your opinion changed about politics, and see if the circle was around or not. So that's, in a very short way, I've tried to give you an overview of how we have come up with a framework to come up with engaging learning experiences. We have translated that into concrete tools that we could use and reuse. Based on that, we have created EDUbox Politics. I've shown you the international version, but now my colleagues will show you the versions that we have created for the Flanders, the Netherlands, and Croatia. And that's my end of my talk. So
thank you, Tim, very much. We'll put in links, of course, to everything into the chat for people who'd like to have a look at EDUbox. A couple of quick questions, Tim, just before we move on. First of all, Cesar has asked, is EDUbox only for youth? Can it be adapted for adult and senior education?
Actually, we are now trying to do that, to also translate to other target audiences, like, for example, more adults or seniors. So I think yes, we are.
I think we can come back to that as well in the discussion, just how, what are the challenges to doing that. Also, Charlotte from MIMO, from the archive, the educational archive here in Belgium, what options for accessibility are there? Have you built in accessibility options to EDUbox?
We are working on that. We have already included some. For example, we also have a PDF, which is now accessible, but the digital version, we already have included some aspects, for example, that you could zoom on some slides or some texts, but we have still work to do. So we are working on that. Yeah.
Work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, there's a question indeed about, for something like GDPR, data protection law, do you think you can apply the same principles that you've used for the EDUbox into learning in areas which are maybe not as attractive?
If you could use the techniques of EDUbox and also in other domains?
Well, the question actually from Alexander is whether EDUbox itself, but EDUbox is really a concept, I think it's fair to say, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be used on themes like GDPR, which are not fun by essence, but which gamification could help to motivate the public? Okay.
I think so. That's always our ambition and challenge, and we We have now created, I think, more than 30 EDUboxes, and it's not always the most easy subject, but it's our job to find a way. So yeah, it's sometimes it will be difficult, but there is always an option to make it a little more fun and engaging. I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, well, listen, let's move on to our next speaker this afternoon. So I'm delighted to welcome Igor Kanazai, good friend and colleague from the University of Zagreb, one of the partners in the project. And Igor is going to take us through the process of how they localized in Croatia, taking on board the EDUbox approach. Igor.
Thank you, Sally, and a huge welcome to all our colleagues, participants, and guests today. I'm glad that Tim gave a really good introduction with the overall framework, so it will be easier for me to focus on the very process of localization from the example of Croatia, and I'm representing our team from Faculty of Political Science, Study of Journalism. I think it will be very interesting for you to see what we have done inside this EDUbox contextualization, and I would just like to show what is the menu that we offer on Croatian language, covering 4 different topics. The first one is politics on your left side above, and that's the one I will be discussing in the next 15 minutes. Then on the right side, there is a content specialized for social networks and social media. Down below on the left, culture, special EDUbox, and down right about persuasion and propaganda, which is also one of the most interesting topics that we saw in Croatia while working in the schools with librarians, teachers, pupils. But also we think that this can be enlarged definitely to seniors, as previously mentioned as the question. So this is how it looks like when you open our EDUbox on politics. As you can see, it's different and similar to what Tim has showcased, because we have introduced Croatian examples as well. And maybe one of the biggest challenges was, how shall we, through the whole EDUbox, try to fulfill all the requirements that we were expected to deliver from our colleagues from consortium, but also to cover really some important aspects from Croatian level. And what was easy? I will start with the things that were really easy for us. As you could see already from the team's presentation, we have a really, really huge moment here about the content that has been produced. So there are so many different ingredients, I'm quoting Tim, and different EDUbox tools that you could use. So there is not just the PDF version, that you have gaming inside, you have really, really important group assignments, you have some new multimedia challenges that you probably didn't see before, such as Reflector app or quizzes or interactive multimedia content that has been produced on a high quality level. Testimonials, which were really, really helpful for us, especially the ones in politics, because we saw that we had very good reaction from Croatian pupils when they saw testimonials from their colleagues from other countries at the European level. And finally, evaluation and validation, which is really important topic for us, and I will focus on this as well to show you how it can be validated, because I think that will be one of the questions that you definitely will ask later on. Has already showed this example of testimonials, and so this is how it looks like on Croatian. So you can see that this is a pure translation. There is not so many context here that you could see, because we would need more time to try to explain the very context behind it. But even this, just with translation, was very useful, because in front of you are 5 different examples, 5 different testimonials, 5 different attitudes about politics that were really helpful to start any type of discussion in our Croatian high schools. What have we learned while we were doing this? I will give just a small reflection to another EDUbox that we produced. It's about culture, because I think this is the best way how you can see the differences. You will see many similarities. Maybe some of you could think that, okay, translation is not so complicated. You have so many options today. But you would be surprised to see the challenges within contextualization, because each example that you have chosen has to be done in a proper way, and you need to define a broader context and try to be close to the expectations of the public. So on the left side, you have a statue Michelangelo's, you have a specific actor in film, you have photography as example, but when you look at the examples on the right side coming from Croatia, there are some cultural artifacts that we find as the very important, especially the first one that were mentioned here, then the Liberty Statue, and definitely Braveheart is one of the most iconic examples that we have. So we were free to choose the examples that we believe would fit better in our Croatian local surrounding, especially from the perspective of the high schoolers, which is really, really interesting audience. So I will now show some more examples, but I will also parallel offer some validation tools, because we always like to have that type of activity present. And after each workshop we had in high schools with pupils, with teachers, and with librarians, we were providing a specific evaluation. So here you will see some results that we have prepared for you, and also validation overview that we have done from March to April in 4 different high schools. It was done online. We had a combination of online and offline. And I think it's rather complex, but we don't have today enough time to go to the very details of it. Just some small hints into the validation process itself. So at the question, to what extent are you interested for participation in societal activities after the workshop on politics, you can see that you have here very interesting figures that really were maybe one of the most evident arguments that we had at the beginning after the first workshops that we have been able to deliver. Then the second question was, to what extent have you recognized how individual engagement can lead to change with the help of one specific example? Tim has already mentioned Universal Charger, which was one huge process behind, and it has led to so many different results at the European level. And that's really a fantastic example. If you have some time just after our session today, go Google and search for Universal Charger example. You will see how interesting it is, because that's the position where we have one man that has been active and that was persistent and was able at the end to provide his idea becoming a policy with huge impact on our society. And that's the thing, the example that students like the most, definitely. Did the workshop broaden your view of politics? We were surprised to see such a huge number of positive answers here. And yes, afterwards in the discussion we had with pupils, it was so interesting to see that specifically these examples that I just mentioned were really valuable for them, because they were able to relate to them. It was not something that we brought from some other perspectives, theoretical approaches, theoretical frameworks, but something really practical. And in the same time, they can see that it is affecting their everyday life. Some more insights into their reflection. The most interesting part was the part in which they learned how to recognize propaganda. As I said, we had really good here results that we had after we introduced propaganda EDUbox and persuasion EDUbox. Then clarification of how only one person in the European Parliament can make a difference. That's the example of the Universal Charger, but that's also the example of the youngest member of the Parliament, which was highly motivating for them. One pupil gave a comment that he is now thinking about how to become a politician just because he saw a specific example, which is very interesting to see at that first few minutes after the end of the workshop. Then the part in which the lecturer explained how we can also get involved in political life. It's not just about the elections. That's really important. We don't have enough time to go into the very heart of the EDUbox on politics, but our main message was, it's not just to go to the exit poll, but really to participate in all other ways that are possible, to comment on social networks, to organize a demonstration, for instance, to do all types of our political activities, not just entering the exit poll. I like the most the part when the lecturer explained how we can get involved on politics, precisely what I just explained. The part that our voice can make a big difference. We gave an example of how in small local communities, if you have elections, sometimes even 5 votes can make a difference. That's the example from Croatia. We have huge number of small local municipalities where we had elections and the results where one specific party won just by 5 votes. The difference was just 5 votes. So this was also some type of eye-opener for them. And the opinions of students in Belgium on the importance of political participation, also something that was purely relevant for them. But that's not just what we did. We did so many other things as well. We worked a lot on dissemination, and our goal was also to raise the voice about the EDUbox, and for that reason we have established cooperation with Teacher and Training Agency. And these are examples from their national conferences with different audiences. In one occasion, primary school teachers, advisors. On another occasion, you had spring librarian schools with 280 participants, where they were also introduced and were able to learn about EDUbox Politics and other EDUboxes that we have produced. Then several examples from our high schools from different parts of Croatia. So we were not just working in Zagreb at the very center, but we covered all areas in Croatia, and we think that this is one of the biggest advantages that we had in the project. And yes, we paid a huge attention to what school librarians and teachers have provided as a feedback afterwards. I was now emphasizing just two words for me really important at this moment, that it was very instructive and that it opened a totally new issue of social responsibility, which is something that they didn't think before in correlation with EDUbox Politics or other topics. Now, our pedagogical experience is also relevant because we saw high level of student engagement. We saw relatable examples from real life. As I said, testimonials were helping them to understand in a different way culture, politics, social networks, and persuasion as well. New experience through applications that we built, highest level of interactivity, but interactivity not per se, for just the purpose to be interactive, but as provided through the context of pedagogical experience and approach. Recognized huge potential for group work, so many takeaway assignments, not just PDF materials, but also some other things that could be used afterwards. And definitely empowers teachers and librarians with great impact. I think these are great take-ons that you definitely can take into consideration if you're thinking about how can I adjust and use our EDUbox in your local context. And I would like to finish with one example that is for me maybe the most important, because we have included in our activities also student media. In Zagreb, we have highly influential student media, television, radio, and newspapers. And this is the coverage of one specific event we had in one high school, how they are reporting about the activities that we have participated in.
Politics is always a relevant topic, especially in this super election year. But many high school students still aren't aware of how it can shape society. To learn more about politics, students can participate in EDUbox workshops, which are part of EDUmake project.
EDUbox je jedan poseban interaktivan multimedijalni alat koji smo razvili s partnerima iz Belgije i Nizozemske kako bi zapravo progovorili srednjoškolcima o važnim životnim temama. 3 koje smo mi odabrali u Hrvatskoj kao hrvatski tim na našem fakultetu su kultura, društvene mreže i politika, odnosno sudjelovanje u društvenom životu.
Zagreb high school students learned what the world would look like without politics and why their voice is always important, sometimes even decisive.
Pa nije to stvar samo u izlasku na izbore, pokazali smo brojne primjere i naglasili da je jako bitno sve što čine kako bi obogatili naše društvo. Od komentara u svakodnevnom životu, na društvenim mrežama, sudjelovanja u javnim raspravama, mirnih demonstracija, peticija, pa tek na kraju zapravo onda i ono što bi svakako bilo dobro, a to je da izađu na izbore i da pokažu svoj stav.
Some may say that young people are not interested in politics, but this workshop has shown how much they care about understanding the world better and even being a part of it.
Ja mislim da se ne čuje dovoljno glas mladih u politici, zato što puno mladih je needucirano o politici, zato su nam ovakve radionice i dobro dođu.
Mislim da ovakve radionice mogu potaknuti mlade da razmišljaju kritički o svemu i da se umjesto da budu tiha većina, politički angažiraju i na neki način možda iznesu svoje mišljenje i jednog dana nekakvu promjenu dovedu.
To help students learn about these topics in class, specialized EDUbox materials will be provided to nearly 800 high school libraries. This will enable staff to conduct such workshops themselves.
Evo, zahvaljujući profesoru Kanižaju, mi također kao knjižničari i profesori prolazimo edukacije i on nam daje jako puno i materijala, ali nauči nas, prenosi nam svoje znanje i mi upravo zahvaljujući tim temama i tim radionicama onda prenosimo znanje na učenike.
In future, there are plans to organize more than 200 EDUbox workshops in high schools throughout Croatia.
Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope this was inspiring for you as well, and I'm now looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Igor. Just one question in at the moment, and that is from Charlotte. I think we know the answer to this. Did you use English or the Dutch version of EDUbox as a source?
English version as original. Due to language challenges, that's the thing that we have discussed. You have that specific challenges, and you definitely take into account what is easier for you to do at the moment. So English version that has been originally produced by all partners was used as the original starting point.
I think the general question of what's the advantage of taking an existing resource like EDUbox and localizing it over developing it yourselves in Croatia. I hope we'll get to that question when we have the group together a little bit later, because I think that's kind of at the heart of this. Okay, but let's move on then to our third presenter this afternoon, and it's Sanne from MediaWise here in Flanders. Sanne is going to tell us the story of EDUbox localization here. Sanne Hermans, over to you.
Yes. I hope you can see my screen with the EDUbox as well.
We do in preview.
Yes, because I'm on two screens and I'm struggling with my with my screen. So voila.
Perfect. Thanks, Sanne.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
So I'm Sanne from MediaWise, the Knowledge Center of Media Literacy, and we were one of the partners in this project. We made the general EDUbox, the English version for the European context, and then we localize it to our Flemish context as well. So for us, the starting point was also the English version of the EDUbox and the European context and European level, and then we change it to our Belgian context as well. And in this presentation, I will show you the differences and the similarities on the English version and the Dutch version of the EDUbox as well, and then also the validation of the EDUbox. We tested it in different schools and got some feedback as well from different teachers and students. So for us, the EDUbox Politics, the English version was the main EDUbox for us where our starting point exactly. And that was the main box that we translated and used in the Flemish context as well. And it was for us easy to adapt that one to our Belgian political context as well, but we didn't make that many changes. Here or there are some changes that we had to make because of our Belgian political context, and that's why we also made some two extensions of the EDUbox. We made an EDUbox persuasion and an EDUbox ideology as well, because otherwise this EDUbox politics would be too heavy to give to the students and teachers to use in the classroom. So that's why we had to make two extensions, because for us it was also important to dive a little deeper in those two topics that were explained in the EDUbox Politics, but we want to give a better overview or a deeper insight in those topics as well. So that's why we made some two extensions. Now I will show you the similarities and the differences between the two EDUboxes, the English version and the Flemish one, and you will see that it's not so that it's easy to adapt it to your local context as well. So in the introduction, we started as well with the school party. For us, that was an interesting way to explain how politics works. We did a step behind, and we used an example that was easy for the students to understand how you organize things together, how you make decisions. So for us, that was interesting to start as well with the school party. And then there were some titles of newspapers in the EDUbox Politics that we changed to our local context, because otherwise the examples that were used in the EDUbox Politics were otherwise too heavy or not that concrete for the Belgian context. So that's why we used some Flemish titles as well of newspapers. So here you can see some changes, not that big, but here and there are some changes that we made in this EDUbox. like Igor told as well, he showed this example as well, the different kind of opinions of the youngsters. For us, it was very important to show them as well, and we didn't make that changes. We used the different kind of voices from the youngsters that were used in the EDUbox Politics, the English version, so that our students as well could see the different kind of opinions of the young people all over the world. So that was for us interesting and important to use as well. The same goes for the video about the youngest MEP. We wanted this video as well in the Flemish version of the EDUbox, because it was for us important to show that you as a young person could have impact on politics, and also to show that the European Parliament also has an important that also is important in your daily life, because in Flanders students always say Europe is so far away, we don't know what they do for us, so that's why we wanted to show this video as well in our version, so that the young people could see that Europe and especially the European Parliament, the people over there have work for them in their daily life as well, so it's important to know what's happening over there. So that's why we wanted to show this video as well with the youngest MEP. So you see there are more similarities and differences for now, but the biggest difference is in the second part of the EDUbox. You can see over here the two extensions that we made. So the theory is in the English version of the EDUbox. There's also some things about the political vision, the political communication, but it's not that it's not that big explained in the English version of the EDUbox. So that's why we made these two extensions, because for us, and especially in the Flemish part of Belgium, it was important to also explain the ideology, the different political visions, and also how people here convince other to vote for them. That's why we also made an EDUbox on persuasion, the political communication on that, and then the main focus on the EDUbox Politics is about the political system. And that is also the biggest difference that's from the Flemish version and the European version as well, how we explain the political system. So, but there are some similarities. We used also the videos about the different leaders, but we used also some more videos about the Flemish leaders as well, but also the different kind of leaders all over the world are used as well. We also used the political there is one assignment about political propaganda and how political propaganda works, and we used also this example of the Netherlands, because for us in Belgium we have the same language, so it's easy for in Dutch to read it, the political propaganda, but it's also too far away for the Belgian students, so that we can use other political examples, so that we not have to choose between political communication here in Flanders. So that's interesting for us that we could use the political propaganda of the Netherlands, and it was also explained in the EDUbox of the European context. And then the biggest changes we had to make was to explain the political situation. There we chose to explain the situation here in Belgium, how the way of your vote, how everything works in Belgium. So from going to vote, to get to the parliament, to the government, how everything is decided, when is a law made, what's the role of the citizens. So that we explained in this EDUbox, and we didn't use the explanation of how everything works on European level. Of course, the European level is also one part in the EDUbox on the Flemish version, but we focused on how everything works on the Belgian level. So that's the main difference of the EDUbox, and it's also the biggest one in this EDUbox that we had to make. Also, one thing that is similar to, I think, Igor told us, and also in the case of the Netherlands, we used also this video of the example about the charger, because for us it was very interesting to see how this decision was made and the process, how we come to this law as well. So for the young people, it was also interesting to see how this example showed how what you can do in the parliament as well. So that's why we used to keep that as well. And of course, you have the third chapter with the game. The team also showed that you are in a parliament, that you have to make decisions as well. So we kept that because otherwise it would be too difficult if we had to come up with another one, with another game as well. And it was very good and easy to use as well. And it was so general that you could use it in different kind of countries as well. So the game we kept. And then in the fourth chapter, everything we kept the same because it was the participation was very easy to use as well, and it was similar to our context. But in some parts we made some changes as well, and we looked to our Flemish context as well on how you can raise your voice as a youngster in Flanders. So there are kind of ways in Flanders that young people can raise their voice. They can be a member from the youth parliament in Flanders and some other aspects as well. So that are some things that we put in the EDUbox as well, how everything works in Flanders and what you can do as a youngster to raise your votes. So that's something we changed from the European EDUbox. So that are the similarities and the different aspects on the EDUbox as well. So you can see that it was very easy for us to use it and to adapt it to our local context. It was not that difficult. And then we also tested the EDUbox in different classrooms in Flanders, and we got some really good feedback from teachers and students on how they used the EDUbox and what their experience are. And in general, they were very happy to use it, and they were the EDUbox was for them a very easy format to use in the classrooms. The students were also very happy because it's another way to follow the lessons. It's not that classical. It's not that boring. So for them, it was very interesting to work with the EDUbox. We tested it in different classrooms and with different teachers and students. So we went to different teachers, and they had two scenarios. So the teachers could choose if they use the EDUbox without modifications and with modifications. And 40% of the teachers used the EDUbox without modifications, and 60% changed a little bit on the EDUbox, and it was to adapt it into their lessons. So they took some parts of the EDUbox so it would fit in their lessons, and also that it would fit to the students as well, so that it was easy for the students to understand everything. So they adapted. So that's why they adapted. We also had some interview questions that we asked to the students and the teachers. We took some field notes as well, and then afterwards we also sent a questionnaire to students and teachers to get some feedback as well. So we got different teachers that filled in the questionnaire, and also got some different answers from the students as well. And when we look at the results, we see that most teachers use the EDUbox in their classroom, and they do it in a group. So that is good, because that's one of the main things. So that you can use the EDUbox in different kind of ways. You can do it also at home. So, students can do it also at home individually, but we see that most of the teachers do it in the classroom, and that's so that the students also can learn from each other and get some feedback from each other. So that's it's very interesting to see that it's mostly used in the classroom as well. And when we look at the result and the methodology of the EDUbox, then we see in general that both teachers and students find the EDUbox is very engaging and enjoyable. The teachers that use the EDUbox with no modifications said it was ready to use, that they just could take the EDUbox and take it in the classroom. So that is also for us a good feedback, that it's just ready to use and that you don't have to do that much. The teachers that use the EDUbox with modification also said it was easy to modify the EDUbox to their own context because of the structure. You can see the EDUbox, it has different chapters, and it was easy for the teachers to take one of the chapters out and took that in the classroom and prepare it with their own input theory that they first wanted to explain, and then did some part of the EDUbox, and then took some other theory as well. So that was also very good to see that it is easy to use for everybody, so that everybody is happy to use the EDUbox. And also when we look at the feedback of the students, then for them it was also very good way to learn some things because it's very interactive. We use a lot of videos. And it's different than the traditional lessons. And if we, voilà, I think that's the main feedback we got from the teachers about and the students about the methodology. And we look at the content of the EDUbox Politics and Persuasion, because that were the both EDUboxes we tested. Then we see that that the EDUbox is very effective, that we achieved the educational goals for both EDUbox and as well for the teachers and the students. So the students learned a lot about when they did the EDUbox. They remembered for exactly what the persuasion techniques were to convince people. They also understood politics better, and that it's a very complex system, that there are different opinions in a political system. So that's interesting to see. And also after they did the EDUbox, they learned more. And they remembered a lot of things despite the complexity of the topics. This for us, that was also very good to see. Politics is not that sexy as Tim explained in one of the videos. It was difficult to teach something about politics, but it was interesting afterwards to see from the students that they actually learned something and that they remember something despite the complexity of the different kind of topics in the EDUbox. And we look at the feedback of the teachers. It was similar with the students. They also were happy to use it, and were also happy about the knowledge the students conveyed with the EDUbox, Politics and Persuasion. So it helps to understand what political is and the political system is, and the different techniques as well. And that there was a progress during the EDUbox. When the students did the EDUbox, the teachers saw that there was a progression between the things that the students remembered when they did the EDUbox on the different perspectives, on the different kind of matters. So that was also for us interesting to see and to learn and to get that as a feedback as well. So in general, when we can conclude, after doing all this and to get the feedback of the students and the teachers, so we can conclude that it was for the students a very good way to learn something. But if they had some way of critical point of feedback, then it was that for them it would be interesting if there were more videos, because sometimes in the EDUbox it's too many texts and they don't like to read a lot. So in a video they get the theory better to them. So that was one feedback we got from the students. And from the teachers, like I said, it was easy to use and a good way to learn something for the students. It was also interesting that it was with interactive assignments as well. So that's a way to keep the students engaged. And also that they got some theory within the videos. It was also interesting that you have different experts that explain something, and it's not one person, the teacher, that must explain everything. So it was for them interesting that you have the different experts that explain the different kind of things during the EDUbox. But what's also crucial that the teacher said, it was easy to use. and you can do it. You can use it in just like it is. But it's very important that you come prepared as a teacher, that you know what's in the EDUbox, that you have an answer as well, and that you that you're be prepared, and that you're not something but okay, we're going to do the EDUbox, here it is. No, you have to know what's in it as well. So that's also very crucial that the teachers said to us. So that are our voilà.
Thanks,
that
Anna.
is our presentation and how we localize it and the things we got from the teachers and the students.
Thanks very much, Sanna. You're going to stay with us until the end, and we'll have a chance of a discussion then. So I'm a little bit mindful of time. So we're going to move on to our final presentation about the localization practice. And this is for the Netherlands and into yours. I'm happy to hand over to Eric and Aniek, who are going to talk about their experience on this localization journey and how they managed to adapt it for the Dutch audience. Aniek, I think it's you and Eric. Eric first.
Yeah,
where you go.
Thank you all for participating on this nice introduction of the EDUbox International, I have to say. You have seen two approaches from Croatia and from Flanders, but we did it quite a little bit different, and Aniek is going to explain how it works for the Dutch audience. But first I have to say something about who we are, because we are part of the national public broadcasters in the Netherlands, and therefore we translated the EDUbox on a different way, because we are mostly video-based database for schools. So video is very important for us, and every product that we make has to consist of videos. So what we do is, okay, I have to click also. What we do is translate, what we did is translate this EDUbox to another form of presentation. It's not only video in the sense of just watching video on School TV, but also other products like videos and quizzes, videos and interactives, in scroll stories, in timelines, and the new product we just made for this particular product is the interactive chat. Important to know also that for localizing the EDUbox for Dutch audience, we are limited in our ways of presenting it, because in the Netherlands, we as a public broadcaster can't make whole lessons, because that would be a false competition with the educational publishers. So what we did is took the modular part of the EDUbox and emphasized that. So Sanne mentioned it in her presentation also. So you can use different parts of the EDUbox just the way you like it yourself. So we don't offer a whole lesson like EDUbox does, but we do it in different modules, which you can use the way you like. I think that's enough for the introduction. So when you look at the original EDUbox, we translated it like this. We took the concept, the topic, storyline research, because that was already done by our Belgian colleagues. And we put in our own EDUbox, or EDUmake, as you like. We translated it, of course, in Dutch. We took the modular part in it, and we attributed the interactive part in the form of a chat. And I think Aniek is ready to tell us about the chat and how it works. So it's an EDUbox, but it looks a little bit different than you've seen so far.
Yes, so that's our version of the localization. And I think the biggest difference is the different level of interactivity. So we put it in a chat form. It's sort of like having a WhatsApp conversation with an expert who leads you through the topic. And I think the easiest way to kind of have a taste of what it feels like is just quickly taking you through the start of how the chat works. So I'm just gonna quickly end the presentation, and I'm just gonna take you to our version. So this is where you start. And this is, her name is Marleen de Rooij, and she is a political journalist in the Netherlands. She's part of the Dutch public broadcaster, the news organization. So she is really an expert on the topic. She's still quite young, so hopefully she kind of, youngsters, she speaks to youngsters. And she's sort of our spokesperson, our expert in the chat. So I can click start. There's some options. I will come back to that later. And when you start the chat, she will start by saying, hello there. And she will send you a video. Ik ben Marleen. In the video, she will say like, hi, I'm Marleen de Rooij. She will tell you a little bit more about her. And she will introduce the topic of politics. Just a little bit, just a little taste in the very first video. So when you have watched the entire video, she will start by sending you, okay, we're going to start right away. And she's going to tell you like, take 3 minutes to organize a school party together. So this exercise is also in the first, in the original EDUbox. And we incorporated it in the chat. So you can see there's a timer you can start, so you can keep the time in hand. And she sends you a checklist. And if you checked all the boxes, so you're going to do this in a group of 4. So you're going to say like, okay, what theme are we going to do? What music are we going to play? What drinks are we going to do? So when you check them all off, the chat just moves on. So by talking to Marleen, and she's going to send you videos, exercises, quiz questions, poll questions about your opinion, which really works in a topic like politics. You're just gradually moving through the topic of politics. And over here you can see 4 chapters, as you will, which corresponds to 4 of the 5 C's that Tim mentioned. So here in the first, Tim likes this. He's awake now. So in the first chapter, she's going to connect you to the topic by introducing it, by having you do a small exercise, and so on and so further. So the 4 C's and the didactical line, we really much try to keep that intact in our version, although it looks very much different. So I'm going to start up my PowerPoint again to sort of see about that. So that's the first main difference, increased interactivity, the chat form. And the second one, oh yeah, so we incorporated all these different media in the chat. And of course, you might think, because they speak Dutch as well in Belgium, we could have taken a Flemish version, but there are little differences that makes it feel a little bit different in language as well. So we had to do some changes over there. And the Flemish government is different from the Dutch way the government works. So we incorporated some existing videos, school TV videos as well, to do the explanation about that, and have Dutch speakers tell the students about their own government, and have existing Dutch materials that explain how it works, all incorporated in the chat. And over here you can see Maurice, who is a presenter of a Dutch children's program, explaining a bit, and it's followed up by a question about the video you have just seen. So is voting a right, or is it something you have to do? So you see the video and right away you get a check like, hey, do you understand what it's about? And when you fill in the question, you can see if you answered it right or wrong. So in this version, you can talk in your group about what do we think the answer is. You click the answer and then you see it right away. And also in this version, we have the video about the universal charge here. So it comes back in all versions. And I really like this aspect of EDUbox, of EDUmake, because at School TV we have a little bit more experience with making explanatory educational animations. So for this part, we took this upon us to make the animation. And in our version, there's one with a Dutch voiceover. In the English one, it is an English voiceover. So we really had a nice way of working together and combining the strong points. So that's nice to see as well, I think. And the next difference is, Tim mentioned they have about 2 hours in Belgium to work through the EDUbox. And in the Netherlands, a typical school hour lasts about 50 minutes. So for us, it was a challenge to keep the didactical line, keep the gist of the information, but still make sure that teachers would actually want to use it and have it presented in a way that would accommodate to how schools actually work in the Netherlands. It was a bit of a challenge, and when we tested it in schools, we came about 55 minutes, because this one is really quite broad. There's a lot to talk about, and the other 2 EDUboxes we did come out in 45 minutes or less. So this one is sort of an outlier, but still we really try to match how the Dutch school system would work and what will work for the teachers, what will work for them. And the last thing is we really focused on accessibility in our scripted chat. So as you can see here in the image, in the top left corner, we have some extra functionalities built in. So the first option is a specific font that would be easier to read for people with dyslexia. So you can turn it on or off as you like. There's an option to have the chat messages a bit larger, which makes them easier to read, to have more space between the messages. And you can close this menu as well. And it's also accessible through a screen reader. So if somebody would use a screen reader to go through the chats, it would work as well. And we also added image and sound description for every video. So if you would be having trouble seeing the video, you could have read the text or have the text read that would say what you can see and what you can hear in the video, or just read it, depending on what accessibility issues you need. So that's something we focused on as well in our interactive chat. And of course, we tested it as well in schools, which is also very interesting to see if something you make, how it actually turns out. And I think my colleague who tested it is also in this, this conversation as well. So we tested it in schools with our target group, kids of 12 to 16 years. And we designed it for groups of 4, so that's also how we tested it. And we were quite happy that we received a grade of 7.88 about for the first iteration of this chat. And of course, there were some bugs and some issues that we were happy to have figured out, and we fixed them in the version that's now live. Something the students really enjoyed was the interactive elements, especially the polls. So they would talk a bit about the subject and then fill in the poll altogether. And when you fill in the poll, you can also see what other people have responded. So there's a bit of feedback over there as well. So this interactive element was received very well. And what we really saw was there was a lot of engagement when there were lots of mixed messages. So chats and quiz and video all mixed, then the engagement was really high. And we can see a fallback in engagement on moments where we would have, for example, 5 longer chat messages back to back. So we changed that. We went back and to still convey the same information, we changed, for example, if we have 5 chat messages, we took one out and still had the same information by, for example, putting in an exercise of fill in the missing word. And you would still have the feedback of filling in the right word. So you can still have the information in the chat, but still keep on having interaction and still keeping the engagement of the students. So hopefully there's some last improvements coming from the chat. And what we noticed was that the students really enjoyed the gamification. For example, in the original version, there's a game where you would step into the shoes of politicians. You would be confronted with some scenarios that would happen in your fictional country. And altogether, you would have to decide what to do. So we have it in a little bit of a different version in our chat version. But we kept that game and changed it over to our version. And students really enjoyed these game parts of learning. And what we learned overall by doing this and testing it with students is that the chat format is very suitable for themes like media literacy. We also adapted EDUbox about AI. And the topic of politics was very suitable because they would have discussions in their little groups. So it really had them engaging with the materials and interacting with each other and with the chat. This format contributes to accessibility, which we also think is very important. And interactive elements, so alternating chats and video and quizzes, has more interactive, more engagement than just text or just video. And the last finding is that teachers would like some more control over the use of the chat. So maybe in the next iteration, we also have sort of a plan of having a sort of a teacher's portal, for example, where the outcomes of the polls would be sent into the teacher's portal and where they can talk about it one last time. And I already mentioned we have the 4 chapters in each chat, which correspond to 4 to 5 C's. And the 5th C sort of comes in the teacher's handout. So we have a teacher's handout which would tell them a bit more about how the chat works, which is also what Sanne said. The teachers really need to know what they were doing. So they need to come prepared. So we wrote a teacher's handout for that to have them a little bit more prepared. And the 5th C is also because we embedded it in schooltv.nl. And on our website, you would have related videos. And that way you could see more about the topic you just had the EDUbox about.
Aniek, we're just about out of time.
Oh, are we?
We are, so I'm going to bring you to an end, if I may.
I think I'm done.
You're done. Perfect timing. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, because we wanted to have just a little moment to bring back together the 3 localization experts, people who've done the localization themselves. So just going to go back to full screen. Thank you very much. If we've a couple of questions which I'd like to put to all of you. So I've Igor joining me, Sanne, Eric and Aniek. And just first of all, there was a question a little bit further back from Cesar's, in which he was just asking about in fact, you started to answer it yourself as well, Anik, in terms of what's different? Is it just a case of context, or is it also to do with a different pedagogical approach and a different approach to storytelling? So I suppose that's my question to the three of you: is what drove you in terms of making those decisions to do things differently? I mean, Anik, you have an iterative process. I know you were getting some feedback as well. But Sana, you started from the beginning making decisions about what you were going to do differently, and you did too, Igor. I'd just like to ask you what drove you to do that. Maybe Igor first.
Well, for us, the main criteria was how relatable the examples are, especially when you focus on high school students, because it takes huge time and experience to know how they think, what examples do they find attractive and useful, and what examples should you use in order to open some more serious topics as well. So it's not just that we have a menu of so many different ingredients, tools, sources, multimedia, artifacts. The idea is that put it all in combination so that we definitely change the way of teaching, focusing on motivation and being inspired. So we were definitely looking at precisely that type of criteria while we were choosing the artifacts that were contextualized and localized afterwards.
Okay, thanks. Sana, what about you?
I think it's a little bit the same that Igor told. It was interesting that it was important to have some examples to show that in the Flemish that they're understandable for the Flemish students as well. So that's why we changed some parts as well, and so that the context of our country is important to show. So that's the starting point, yes, for us.
Okay.
Sally, just one example. Sorry. For instance, it was suggested and planned in the EDUbox to have as the opening activity organization of school party. We have tested it and it was not such a good example for us. So we have chosen the school trip that they have organizing in the third and the fourth year. And it was so much interesting for them to reflect on this activity. So this is one good example to see how it changes in the local context.
Made sense then. And what about you, Anik and Eric? You did something very different.
It's very different, yeah. We found that the Dutch students really needed more interactivity to keep engaged with the material. So that's why we sort of really decided to go with a different format. And of course, local examples to really engage with the material.
And Anik, there's a question from Charlotte in the chat, as you can see, about how the chat actually works. So if you could maybe give context so you could swap information, that'd be great, because that's kind of more of a technical question. Because I wanted, before we come to the end, because I promise we'll finish on time, it's just if you have any tips to give anybody, what would you say to anybody who's with us this afternoon who's engaging in these kinds of activities? What should they do and should not do? Igor? Oops, mic's off.
Sorry, I definitely think that you need to be familiar with the audience. You need to know their previous knowledge, their interest, their background, and that's the starting point from where you go while building the totally new example, for instance, that what we just did. It was really out of, it was the most important for us when we met together as a team and we shared the experience, because I think that's the best added value of the project, because that way we became familiar with so many differences that we have. And it was much easier than to build the project from the start. So yes, I would definitely do it again in the way that we would even more emphasize the communication between the partners to exchange the knowledge, expectations, and all other challenges that we were facing while building the project.
Know your audience, as you say. Yes. Yeah. Sana, would you anything to add to that? Just makes perfect sense. Eric and Anik, any other tips? Anything you'd say? Things you do differently?
Differently? No, I think we said it all. It's very important. It was very important for us, and just like Igor mentioned, to work together and to see the different opinions and the different approaches with the different countries, and still make your own. And but we couldn't do it with all the knowledge from VRT that they put in. So that was a great advantage for us.
Huge amount of help. Look, thank you very much, everybody. As you can see.